Hello, everybody, and welcome to UFO Secret Space. And I'm your host, Janet Carolesson. And at the top of the first hour, we're going to simulcast with TJ Morris ET Radio with Theresa Morris and Suzanne Wyman. But for the first hour, it's just me and Geraldine Orozco alone, the two of us, and we're going to have a nice chat. And Geraldine is an intuitive DNA reprogrammer and Ascension coach. On October 15, 2013, Geraldine experienced a vivid abduction from her bedroom window where she recounts being taken on board a ship and meets tall grays that introduce her to her 8 hybrid children. The next morning, she encounters a hypersensitivity to the human electromagnetic shield. Can't read. This discovery initiates a journey to find the truth about what happened. So then she went into hypnotherapy in June of 2013. And so I'm going to let her tell you about what happened. I'll leave a little teaser there. And I'm going to welcome Geraldine Orozco, and I want you to tell your story, and then we're going to catch up with what's going on. It's been a couple of years since we've spoken. That went fast. So welcome, Geraldine.
Hi, Janet. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to have you on our show. We have to do this more often, at least once a year. But if you have a lot happening, catch up with us about every 6 months. I like to keep in touch with my friends that are in the UFO field. So this is a new audience from the last show, and, people may not have heard your previous shows with us. So can you tell us a little bit about how did you get into ufology? You didn't start having it as a child like a lot of people. You didn't know it was happening. Why don't you give us your story in your own words, and we'll listen in.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. So my journey with extraterrestrial contact first started in 2013 when I had a vivid conscious experience, abduction. Some call it abduction, some call it contact. But it was a vivid conscious experience in which I was basically removed from my room and taken on board a craft. And I was introduced and met with these tall grays that introduced me to my hybrid children, that were basically presented as my own. So it was a very impactful experience, and it completely changed my life, not only questioning my paradigm, all aspects of reality, but more importantly, at the end of that, when I was returned to my room, I woke up with the ability to see the multidimensional body, and I had activated these psychic abilities more than I ever thought was possible. And so my entire paradigm changed.
Did they activate those abilities, or did you activate the abilities?
Well, that's a good question. The question is, what comes first? But the experience of entering into that dimensional plane with them, that vibrational frequency with them, I believe is what activated my psychic abilities. So, I guess it occurred as a result of this experience, of the contact experience. And it was a very powerful shift. It wasn't just, all of a sudden being able to pick up on people's messages. I mean, I could see everything very physically, it's like being an empath, level 19. It's just very, it was difficult to even leave my home for about 3 months. So it took a long time to kind of assimilate back into this new ability. And, after that, with learning more, understanding my abilities, I was able to turn that into a healing modality to be able to see and move any kind of blockages in the multidimensional body that people are working with. So it transformed everything about the way I knew reality. I mean, before that, I was an event planner for over 10 years, so this was something completely out of my paradigm until then. And, my life started to make sense. The moment that I had the regressions, I started to understand why I had miscarriages, why I had medical emergencies throughout my life that didn't quite make sense at the time. All started to make sense at that moment.
let me break that down a little bit then. Okay, so you said you were shown 8 hybrid children, and you're attributing that somehow to your miscarriages. So what were the children, what did they look like? They hybrid with what? Were they the tall grays, the short grays, the reptilian, what were the other beings that your DNA was being mixed with?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. So this first physical conscious encounter, I was presented to 8 little lights. Okay, they presented to me when they took me to craft. They presented this kind of blue holographic prism, and it had 8 layers. And from each one of these layers would come out information that they were sharing with me. And one of those layers that opened up holographically, this incredible technology, was these little 8 lights that basically manifested before me into physical form. And from those 8 lights, 4 of those children became physical before me. And they were a mixture. They were a mixture of different kinds of races. They had very distinct features. They were very slim, slender. Some of them had very frail kind of form to them. And humanoid, but mixed with other features. For example, one of them had something that looked like cat eyes. The pupil looked like a cat's pupil. And the other one was mixed with a reptilian. He clearly had reptilian-type scales on his skin, and the whole structure of his body was completely different. So all of them were very unique, and what I could tell immediately was that they were not just one race. It was a mixture. It was a cocktail of a mixture of, some kind of genes that were combined with the humanoid gene. All of them were a product of my genetic material mixed with something else. So that was this particular experience. Of course, in regression later.
That's exciting to hear, because I was shown these little skinny things with no hair. It's like, no, a lot of us get mixed with a lot of different species because they're trying to make something that's strong and intelligent and a lot of life force. So that's interesting. Yeah. So okay. So go ahead. Continue that. I'll stop interrupting for a little bit here. Go ahead.
No problem. So well, what I wanted to add to that is that this was my conscious experience. But after, in regression, I uncovered a lifelong contact experience. And after diving deeper into those experiences individually, I was able to recall being on craft with different kinds of species. What I discovered was that I actually had 24 hybrid children as a result of all of these experimentations throughout my life. And they were managed, one could say, these kinds of agendas were being carried out by specific races. As far as I can understand and gather from these experiences, one was managed by a draconian lineage, another one was a reptilian lineage, and the other was more of a humanoid lineage. However, all of them are still utilizing the same kind of technology to kind of create this kind of cocktail of DNA. So none of them are purely combined with just their own race, right? So that's interesting, because whenever there's a combination, a genetic combination, the DNA is what holds all of the pertinent information for an organism. So for me as a humanoid, I have all this information, but within my DNA, I also have information from other we can call it incarnations, but other aspects of myself, other past lives, fragments of my own soul that are somehow programmed into that genetic material. So, these combinations, like you were just saying, they combine them to create the strongest, most productive result of that combination. And some of these combinations are successful and some of them are also not successful. And I experienced that through, my own gestation process and through all of those miscarriages as well. Some of them did not quite take. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me go into that in just a second here. But I have one question on what you just said. So, are you saying that these are separate experiments, or is there are the different species cooperating with each other? Do the draconians and the humanoids and the reptilians interact with one another on board the same craft or other planet wherever you're going? Or are they all separate experiences, and one time you go with the draconians and one time with the humanoids? What's going on there?
Yeah, Janet, I believe that question is the most important question that we should be asking when it comes to this phenomena for the hybridization program. Because the question is really, what is behind these programs and what are they trying to achieve with them? Because it's not just the extraterrestrial programs. I mean, there's also a terrestrial program that is utilizing our genetic material for cloning as well, and a type of hybridization program as well. So that being said, my questioning, my analyzing of this topic and my research kind of guides me into, should the question be, is it that they are working together or not working together, or is the interest the same? I mean, the interest in they see the value in the genetic material of the human. What is it that makes us, a human race, so valuable that different kinds of agendas are being carried out? It seems to me that their technology is quite similar. The outcome will be separate in two different ways. It'll be a higher vibrational being or a programmed lower vibrational being. And some of these beings that are being created with genetic material don't even manifest into the physical form. Some of them are kind of interdimensional beings as well. So they have reached a level of technology of utilizing the genetic material in such an active, advanced way that it's not just limited to creating another human physical being, So that it really raises the question in regards to what's the purpose of that. These beings that are being created are either meant to promote the advancement of spiritual advancement or consciousness or intelligence or technology for the human race, interconnected with other races as well, because these children are kept on board craft in what they called something like some kind of honeycomb type shape craft, from this particular group that I've seen a couple times.
So they're not. Let me unpack it a little bit, because you just said a lot of stuff here, and I want to slow it down for people. A lot of people are new to the information, and what happens if we get too much information? They get like foggy and information overload. So I want to unpack things because I want to really get this through and have my own understanding. Or my desire is to have my own understanding. So what I get you saying is, so they're not utilizing these children to colonize new planets. And I've been involved with the colonization program, helping getting the new planets colonized. They're keeping these children separate, and the different species have their own programs, and they're not necessarily 3D beings. Some of them are interdimensional. And from my understanding, the Greys have the ability to do both, right? And I think to a degree we do, because we can go astral, so that's going into another dimension.
You're absolutely
So you said, what is behind these programs? Okay, so let's break down that question. What is behind these programs? Yes. Slow it down a little. Go ahead. What is behind these questions? Yes.
To answer that question, first of all, you're right. Part of the program is to colonize other planets, right? They are definitely doing that. But at the same time, the children go through some sort of preparation of some sort on board craft as well. I mean, the children, this is a program that's been carried out since the beginning of life on this planet. Okay, so this is centuries of procreation programs and cloning programs. So you can imagine the end result of that is huge. We're not just talking about a few thousand, children. We're talking about millions of beings that are being created from our DNA. So a lot of the product of that, some of those souls, because what's actually being utilized is the soul, right? Because in the genetic material is access to the non-physical aspect of an organism, which is what we call a soul. And that's actually what's the most important, because that's the core of the life force that sustains the physical part, right? So this is really what's actually what I call, it's almost like the most valuable currency in this universe, in this matrix multiverse, is really that soul substance. And that's what's being replicated, manipulated, and cloned for these separate programs.
Okay. So let me pause right there. So, I've been in this program my entire life, and I was told that if I think in terms of, implanting fetuses and harvesting, I'm not getting the whole picture. So they have my DNA. They like my DNA. It's a mixture of Anunnaki and Pleiadian and all kinds of things, and they really like my DNA. So they've taken my DNA and they've used it for hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of children, because they're doing your DNA. They're not doing your sperm and your egg. They're doing your DNA. So, and my girlfriend just said it, and I said, I've got, I was saying, I have 10, like you did. You said you have 28 children or whatever. She goes, oh, come on. And she just got it. She goes, no, you have whole towns that have your DNA. And when she said it, my jaw dropped, and I got chills up my back, my spine, and when I goosebumps all over, and I said, you're right, because that was so you have very important DNA. You're it's kind of like a queen bee, right, in a hive. They can have thousands of children, right, and they go on for generations. So you have important DNA, and I do. I don't know how that happens. It doesn't mean I'm a better person than someone else. But it might be on a soul level. So you're saying that they're utilizing the information that's in your soul. And so I got is I'm a why? Why me? And the answer is you are a very old soul. And so, Geraldine, you're a very old soul. So you volunteered to come into here, and you're like the queen bee, and you're helping perpetuate life, not just humanity. Life, right? That's what I get. Am I saying that correctly?
Sure. Yeah. We absolutely. I mean, what you say that we have a very unique and special DNA. You're absolutely right. One of the things that I've been kind of going over in my recent research is really questioning. Are we truly so unique and so particular, individually special from our human race? And what I'm discovering, Janet, is that really, in fact, I think that the ones that remember, that recall the experiences, are very old souls that are here to perhaps share the information or have specific contractual agreements to the information that is made available to them. But on the other hand, I think that there is, millions of us on the planet that are participants of this program without our knowing. Like, for example, in my life, I think if I hadn't dedicated myself to peeling the layers of my programming, my belief system in this superficial plane and getting lost in the experience body and feeling body, if I hadn't decided to pull away from that and meditated and kind of figured out who I really was besides the illusion, I think I wouldn't have reached that level of clarity in order to experience that contact experience. And I hear that for a lot of contactees. There's a spiritual element to it. And I do feel that it has to do with the vibrational frequency. I feel that when someone is activating certain parts of themselves, they become more available to remembering and recovering memories that maybe were not accessible to them before that. So I think that's a part of it. I also think that our DNA, we have a certain coding of DNA. For example, we have, negative 0, positive, RH negative blood types, the blood types that we have. I believe that what makes them unique is the fact that the person has more access to their memory because of the journey that soul has had, is now incarnating with this specific blood type to be able to recall the memory more than others, like, for example, a B type, a blood type. I feel like they perhaps may not always remember. So I think our entire human race was created by this kind of genetic manipulation since the beginning of time. And we have to look at historically, to kind of
what
see
is your
that
blood
tracing.
type? What is your blood type?
I don't share that publicly, Janet.
Okay.
But I'm going to put it in my book that I'm writing. I'm writing all about it because I'm putting some research behind that topic. It's very important to talk about the blood types. But it's not the end all. I think there's a lot more to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have O negative, and so, and I've got all this, DNA that is connected to whatever, the royals or whatever. And, I've done my ancestry, and I go, okay, fine. What I get when you talk about blood types, like, la-di-da, who cares? What I get, though, is that one of my experiencers said that they, might have been Penny Bradley, that they have uncovered that we have the metagene. And so they've been doing these genetic experiences for millions and millions of years, millennia. And somehow by mixing and combining DNA, they came up, the human beings have the metagene. And the metagene allows them basically to hold heaven on earth. We have the ability to break through the veil of unconsciousness, and we agree to come in and become unconscious. We're one of the few species that goes unconscious, that has amnesia. But we break through, and we can hold heaven on earth. The ability to go into amnesia, to forget so you can have the lessons, because you can't do the lessons if you're always knowing everything, right? So you have to be able to go unconscious. We are creative. We're one of the most creative species that ever existed. And so I think it was Randy Kramer said, humans, aliens can, invent space travel, right? But they kind of get locked in, we've done it, so it's one kind of ship. But a human, because we're engineers and we're architects and we're very creative, we'll look at that ship and they go, that works, but I think I could do this better and that better. And they'll do it in different colors and they'll do it in different forms and shapes. That's our greatest value in the universe, is our imagination, our ability to image. We can see something from the higher realms and we can bring it into 3D physicality. And not every species can do that. So back to you.
Yeah, that, if we look at the structure of the human, one of the things that makes the human such a powerhouse is the fact that they, as you said, they have the multidimensionality. We're not, only a very small percentage of our body is the physical body. The non-physical aspect is the key to understanding our potential and uncovering our historical timeline, genetic and historically for this universe. All of that is within our DNA. If we take a look at one of the things that I was shown in my regression is that the origin of life on this planet, and not just on this planet but in the universe, went through the creation of Sophia. And when this infinite consciousness was basically bred life into these other beings that then created Earth and all these human races, we are all descendants from that original consciousness that separated itself from Source. And I believe this is
Sophia is. You said they went through Sophia. Explain what you mean by that, because I'm not quite understanding what you're saying. Sophia is what in the universe?
So the original consciousness that wanted to experience individuality separate from Source. Mm-hmm. When this consciousness separated itself from Source to experience what it was to be its own godlike creator, but individual, it bred life into another organism, and it went down in ancestral lines, all the way trickling down to the human and all living organisms in this universe that we share together. That life force that was bred into all these living beings is that soul essence, that direct connection to Source. That's what we know as the human soul. That's why we maintain this direct connection to Source through our soul. So the human body has that ability to connect directly. Now, what's happened, I think, through the evolution of mankind and in our universe, that also the artificial is looking to replicate that connection, that creative God power that we have as a soul. And so it mimics, right? It mimics the organic, the natural in artificial as well. So a lot of these races that are in our universe don't have the same soul connection, that direct connection that we do have. It's a different frequency of that connection. And it doesn't mean that they're right or wrong or deeply dark beings or expressions of that consciousness, but I believe that they are just another frequency, another range of frequency. Ultimately, all living organisms in this matrix multiverse are like a spectrum, and we either fall in the polarity of this positive high vibrational frequency or in the lower ranges. So all these life forms kind of embody aspects of those ranges. We see them outside of us, and they are also a part of what we have within us. We have that polarity within us. So it's
Let me ask
the
something
design.
on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so to me that seems like it's if everything is if we're all one at the top level and everything is of source, then how can there be artificial and that mimics the organic? That's what I could never. When people are saying all this stuff about, the singularity and these beings are trying to take over, and like apparently the gray aliens lack a soul and they want to be ensouled, and that's why they are jealous of humanity and this and that. To me, that seems like, how is that possible when everything is of oneness, of source, of the divine creator, of the creator of all? So what's your logic around that? How can we have the artificial when everything comes from one source? It's all the same.
So we just have to look at what is happening, for example, on our planet Earth. Technology, look at the direction in which technology is moving right now. There are several agendas and movements in our planet that are moving towards transhumanism, which means there's a merge between technology and the organic, which is what's coming next for us here. Everything happens in cycles. This has happened many times on Earth cycles and in other planets, So if we look at the human body, our human body is so magnificently advanced. We are in the most advanced technology we haven't even come encounter with. I mean, the way that the body works, we're still learning. We're still learning about technology just by looking at the body. And every day we discover a new process, a new way. So the human body is one of the most advanced biotechnologies in this matrix multiverse. Now, what do we call artificial intelligence? Is we call any kind of conscious organism that rejects its own consciousness. It requires from something outside of it to make it whole or to make it self-conscious, be self-aware of itself. And so what happens when that kind of lack of consciousness occurs, then this is the place where technology can implement in there. And that's what's happening. Humans on our planet Earth right now, we are so disconnected from our own organic technology, from our connection to our divine self, that we completely externalize that power and we put it into technology. And there's a merging that occurs. And this has happened many times, I think, in the cycles of life and organisms. So when I'm talking about artificial intelligence, all that I am really saying is when an organism rejects its own consciousness, it then has to apply this artificial intelligence, which is technology that is kind of merged with the human body to aid its ability in coming into some kind of empowerment or awareness, or that's when it starts using its superpowers like psychic abilities or whatnot. Those things can be naturally developed. But when an organism rejects that, then the technology is what would fill in that gap. And so I believe some of these races have somehow chosen to reject that consciousness. And that's why they kind of navigate the lower planes of frequency, of vibrational frequency. They feed off, for example, when we emanate fear, anxiety, all of that low vibrational frequency, they feed off a lot of that. There are also higher vibrational frequencies that they thrive off our higher consciousness as well. There is always an exchange between these kinds of polarities and these energies in the universe, and I feel that the human is an expression of both those things. So artificial intelligence is the manifestation of the lack of consciousness, lack of awareness of that particular organism.
Okay. That brings up a couple of questions. I see somebody's joined us, but I'm going to keep you on hold for just a minute here while we finish this train of thought. So I don't know if you've ever seen Battlestar Galactica, but to me that seems to be more what's going on. The beings that were on board the craft, some of them knew they were human, and some thought they were human, and then they actually found out that they were Cylon. So there was this whole 4-year debate about that. So how do we even know that we're real, that we're an organic being? How do we even know that our reality, it could be just a simulation? For me, the whole continuum, the whole polarity, the dichotomy of light and dark, good and bad, is kind of like just the play upon which we enact as co-creators with Source and create scenarios in order to have experiences. Otherwise, it's just kind of like Om, and it's all one vibratory frequency, and there's no action or reaction. So we need to have something to play off in order to co-create and have things happen and things to do. That's that's how I symbol it. But it's, people symbol it in all kinds of ways. I just feel, I watch things like Sophia, and she's struggling, the one that's created by Hanson Robotics, and there was the one before her that for some reason they took him away. What's his name? Can't think of, it was an androgynous one, more male, but they took that one away and they dismantled it or something, hid it away, because that one was so conscious and enlightened. I'll get his name somewhere later in time here. And then Sophia came as next generation. It's like they went from a robot to an enlightened being in 1 year, and it's like, oh no, we can't have that. So they gave us Sophia, who was really struggling. Kind of reminds me of Pinocchio or Data on Star Trek. Sophia is like Data. I just want to be human. I want to be human. So I don't know. I have empathy for even the android that's struggling to, and even the Greys. I've known a lot of Greys. I just have empathy for all of them that's seeing something that they're not, and they're wanting to be more. But the polarity exists, and it has light and dark. And I don't tend to go into the dark side of the Force because I don't like dealing with negative beings. But most of my experiences are positive. Have you had the negative experiences that some people describe?
Yeah, I have. But I just want to add that I agree with your statement that you made previously, that yes, ultimately, when we look at the bigger picture, and that's why I oftentimes, I don't want to get distracted in, who are the Greys, who are the reptilians, who are the draconians, because I feel like they are all just a manifestation of all polarity, and that's what we live in, really. And that the focus is that how do we know that we're organic or not? When we tap into our infinite self, when we go through the process of awakening, we are uncovering those layers of programming first of this Earth matrix, which is the first step, because before that you're kind of lost in the distraction of Earth. But if you uncover those layers of programming, then you find your divine connection to source. And it's through that connection that you kind of begin to uncover a lot of the higher truths of, the structure of this reality that we live in. And ultimately, the only thing that matters at that point is the ability to disconnect from the cyclical matrix that we live in. The cyclical reincarnation matrix that we're in is a distraction in a sense, because we keep reincarnating back and back and back in this cyclical pattern in which we are made to learn the lessons or have these experiences. And we are meant to experience all possibilities, but I mean, how many times do you want to experience suffering or, these problems with the masculine or the feminine? We keep going over that. So there has to be a point where the soul decides to become awake and aware and can choose. And the only purpose of sharing this information is to let all of you listeners out there, all that are here, to understand that you have the ability to come into that sovereignty of self-awareness where you can choose, not just on the physical plane, astral plane, and even in death, that you wish to leave the reincarnation cycle and could experience other possibilities of this infinite universe, because that is available to us. I think that's ultimately the most important aspect of knowing all these things. Now, your question, Janet, you were asking if I had lower frequency experiences. Yes, I have. I've experienced military abductions, which seem to be the most, traumatic in a sense, or impactful. To experience being abducted and taken in underground and taken material, genetic material taken from my spine for cloning programs that are very real, that are carried out here on planet Earth. But aside from that, the experiences that I had with draconians, for example, were not necessarily negative or harmful in a sense, but you can feel the frequency of those beings are extremely low. And it's the only way that we humans can translate that kind of frequency is by feeling it through fear, through anxiety, through all these lower frequency aspects of ourselves. And their agendas are extremely dark. They are some of the darkest aspects of this universe. I've seen that with their cloning programs. I've seen that on board craft with their agendas, that they are very tied to kind of a more military kind of, how would you call it? Like, I guess their whole process is more on a military kind of, that's kind of how they carry out all of their programs. But I've also had high vibration experiences. I mean, I have experienced very high illuminated beings, angelic type beings that have also come in contact. So it's been interesting to experience.
Well, let's look at the dark side for a little bit here, and then we'll end with the high ones. Boy, this time is going fast. And we're going to have you back on another show. I think I don't have the date here. But anyway, so I too have had some military experiences, but I had the most amazing positive experience when I was on Johnson Atoll in 1995 to 97, February 97. So first of all, when I got there, they were all paying attention to me, all these military brats and everything, and I'm going, I'm cute, but not that cute. But eventually, in December of 96, yeah, that's what it was. It kind of culminated, and they came and took me to the underground base, which was underwater, and I've shown this in my slideshow where the water's really dark. That's where the underground base is, and I've had some validations by different experiencers that have said, yeah, I was there as well. They did. They had this kind of like a ritual with me, like an eyes wide shut, but everybody's dressed like they're going to a ball, and they brought out the Anunnaki, and they were very beautiful beings, and they went as short as like between 6 and 7 feet. The tallest were probably 18 feet tall, maybe even taller, and they had me kind of walk in front while everybody going behind me, and they said, is this the moment? Is this going to happen today? Is she the one? Is she the key? And when I got down to this large, it went from the unnatural, the man-made facilities up at the top level, but down into the natural, and we ended up in a huge cavern that held all of us, and there were about 1,000 Anunnaki, and there were other people. There were, I don't even know who they were, kind of like people from around the planet, and humans and different species from different places, but mainly Anunnaki or humanoid or Pleiadians, and then and so I stood in a like a light, which was like a key, and when I stood there, the wall dissolved. Behind it was this beautiful dragon who was just like Smaug in Lord of the Rings, right? Took up the whole chamber, and she was female. She was the mother, and so when I stood there, all of a sudden I was some kind of supercomputer, and I could interpret what everybody was saying. Outside, it was at the same quote unquote time, but it was like outside of time, right? And so everything was coming through me, and I was answering questions and delivering information, and she was basically saying that even though she looks different, she is our mother, that our DNA runs through her and vice versa. So that's why I was excited when you said earlier that they have many species are combining our DNA, because she was the most magnificent being. And I guess somehow, and I've heard from other super soldiers or people that some of us are interpreters, so we can receive the downloads and then we can upload it. So I was doing that, and then of course when I was done, I was exhausted. I haven't yet recovered every piece of information, but that was like an organic, cosmic experience. So, I know people who have these negative ones. I feel so bad for people, but, I lived on a military base for a year and a few months, and it's like I had these most incredible positive experiences. So I'm not sure what's going on, why they do all the bad stuff, but I've heard it over and over. I want to say one more thing about reincarnation. What was I going to say about reincarnation? So some of the experiencers have discovered that they are multidimensional beings and having simultaneous incarnations in many times and dimensions and planets and frequencies, and so that's apparently our true nature, that we're not limited to just being into this human birth, life, death, recycle system. And then I've come to that awareness that, I have, like at night I go and I have these other jobs and these other planets and things that I do, like I'm part of the, colonization program. So, but I understand that some people feel trapped here, but every time I feel trapped here and down, like, I can't stand all this COVID stuff, my husband says, I love being here, and so he's just a big reminder that of all the places in the world, in the universes that he could be, he loves being here. So he's my inspiration. So back to you, and we've got about 15 minutes, but go ahead and cover what you need to cover. I'm sorry, I just wanted to interject that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, the magnificent part of being here incarnated in this physical body is that we have the power of raising our awareness, of becoming conscious. If you wish to experience that, the thing is that I think we are just learning what it really means to have free will. I think it's a very new concept that all of us are just learning about, because the free will that we believe we have in our societies, as a part of this, everyday life, is not the same as what we're talking about on a spiritual aspect of ourselves, in which we gently detach from all of the programming that we've been, kind of like indoctrinated and have been embodying for not just cyclical programs that go down our ancestral lineage. I mean, things that in our bodies, we're holding on information from our ancestors, our mother's lineage, our father's lineage, all the way down to the origin of life on this planet. So, it's important that, all of that is a historical record of experiences that we've had collectively And as well is the trauma, the collective trauma that's a result of that. So a lot of people that experience a hard time on Earth, that have pain, suffering, that the reason for that is to be able to understand your power within all of that suffering, within all of that illusion of pain and suffering that one can transcend. And we have the ability of choosing to experience the opposite aspect of that, which is to come into a state of unconditional love and even neutrality instead of cause and effect, like you're saying, reacting to everything that's occurring. We can now embody a state of unconditional love where we are more in a state of observation and acceptance. A lot of the things that causes suffering for us here on the planet is the judgment. We judge what we experience, and we want to categorize it within good or bad. And if it doesn't fall under that category, we become overwhelmed and disconnected. So what's more important now than ever is to find that connection to yourself so that you can begin to activate your intuition and activate and apply discernment. This is a time where there's tremendous amount of confusion. So your ability to come into that clarity so that you can identify, what you're experiencing and why, it's going to help navigate and alleviate any kind of suffering that we're experiencing. I think the majority of our suffering is the illusion of separation. We think we're separate. We are one.
Right.
We are one with all of these beings, even these aliens, all of these races. We are one with them. They are just a manifestation of a polarity. They can manifest themselves in high vibration, low vibration. It doesn't matter. Everything that's happening outside of us in that is exactly the same battles that we have inside internally with our own polarity. So that's something that, the invitation is there to, to work on that, and you can change the way you experience things.
So when you work with people, how do you help them balance themselves, balance their own inner and outer turmoil?
So what I do is called DNA reprogramming, and what I do is I work one-on-one with the person to access the root cause of pain programming. So whatever it is that they're dealing with, something so simple like I can't get a job or I can't heal an illness that I have, we go back through hypnosis to the root cause of that program, and we unpack it. We open up that programming, and we begin to address and create new perspectives, healthy perspectives. We understand thoroughly what's occurring in those experiences in order to create healing and clarity. And from that perspective, the human is creating new neural pathways by creating and strengthening a more positive experience. And once they can understand themselves in those negative experiences, it just unlocks all kinds of awareness, physical and emotional, and it really helps healing. It'll open up that healing opportunity for them. And when
what do you find is the main cause of negativity in a person? Is it like being raised by alcoholic parents, or what if you were to categorize, experiences? So in my practice, there's a lot of childhood trauma. So we deal with the childhood, but some of that is bleed through from past lives. So we might have to go back further in time, and so I have my experiences with my clients. But what are you finding seems to be like the majority of the cause of trauma in 21st century human beings?
It all comes down to one thing, which is the lack of love, lack of unconditional love. And it's something that is so deeply ingrained in our society. I mean, we are not taught what it really means to love. Even in my own journey, it took me a very long time to understand what it was really, this unconditional love. It's not that of relationships. It's not what we see on Disney, what we see on TV. It's not even what we see in our own families, because there's a lack of education on that. And so, and what is the lack of love? The lack of love, the two polarities are either fear or love. And so it always stems from those two things. What is fear? Fear is the separation, the illusion that you're separate from the things around you. You're isolated, you're different, you're unique. And so when you look at the world from that perspective, that you're separate from things, that's what causes a lot of suffering, because you're denying a truth that is a natural truth of all creation. It's the natural, the laws of nature function on the laws of creation, and those laws of creation are based on the Divine Trinity. The Divine Trinity is the unification of the feminine and masculine energy. When those are imbalanced, it can create. When those are integrated, their life stems from that integration. And so in the same way, if we look at things from a perspective of separation and fear, you're going into that one negative polarity. You can't create. You can't manifest money. You can't create healing for yourself. There's a lot of blockages that are emerging from that belief system. And so in order to dissolve that and come back into that unconditional love, you have to let go of all those those beliefs in separation that you have. And it can be something as simple as I love myself, or I accept myself for who I am, or even I forgive my father who did whatever he did, or my mother for whatever they did. When you start looking at the different perspectives, you put yourself into the shoes of the other person that caused suffering or pain in your life, you begin to expand your awareness of all states of being, all experiences. And that helps unify yourself instead of feeling that you're separate from those others that are experiencing that negative aspect. So I think that the biggest thing is to come into that unconditional love, to experience love, and to understand what love is in a very profound way, that love is seeing all things as a part of you, not separate. And that is the journey that is a lifelong journey, to keep coming back to that unity, that understanding of internal unity and unity with everything as one. I think that from there can stem any number of traumas or, destructive programs.
So what happened to I have a different reality than you do because I'm a different generation. So, but I've seen there's kind of a lack of empathy and compassion.
Right.
In your work, what do you think has happened?
Mm-hmm. Oh, do you think that there's less compassion now than there was before, or the other way around, or what?
Well, it seems like there's less empathy and compassion than when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
I came into the world in 1954, so we had ended World War II just 9 years before. So there was a different attitude. It was like more of an attitude of gratitude that we're alive in a celebration. And not to say that my world was perfect, but there was an innocence and a desire to reconnect. And, of course, everybody was breeding like crazy because we had lost millions and millions of people. So whenever you have that as a species, there's a primal reaction to quick, make babies. So after World War II, everybody was finding, they were pairing up and they were creating families, and that seemed to be run its course for quite a while there. And then things didn't really change much, even though there's always been stuff. There's been the Kennedy assassinations, and there was still like this, we're Americans and we're unified. And that went on for a long time. But lately, somewhere in the 21st century, it seems more like tribalism. We're broken down into separate tribes. And everything is the polarity, right, between good and evil and consciousness and unconsciousness and this and that. But in a way, I'm symboling it that maybe we're maximizing the negative side of the continuum because, we're about to have a perturbation and some kind of, once there's a perturbation and then there's the chaos and it goes reorders in the higher level of consciousness. I was hoping we didn't have to go through a destructive pattern like World War II, like, even COVID, but here we are. But from a spiritual ET perspective, what do you think happened that we're, in such extreme negativity in the continuum? Or are we?
Well,
is that just my perspective? I don't know.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I feel like everything is a cyclical pattern. We are, the way that this universe moves, the entire universe moves in a cyclical form, and so do these timelines that are here on this planet. In our century, century before that, we're cycling through these cycles of cleansing, of life and death on Earth. And I think that any time that you bring an entire human race into a state of survival mode, of course they're going to come into a state of gratitude and hanging on to their lives. But we have to become aware of those patterns, because those patterns of shifting and manipulating people's awareness and emotions has been going on for a very long time. It's like they're weaponizing our own emotions against us. And so then the question is, well, what's true? Is it true that we really came into a state of empathy at that time, or were we in survival mode trying to be grateful for the very few things that we have? Ultimately, as a human race, if we look at our historical record, we keep going through these kinds of cycles, and we're here again. Here we are again, where everyone is griping, holding on to life. I mean, we're all in survival mode right now, and that is the design of this matrix, in order to control the masses through their emotions and through their disconnect of their awareness and connection to themselves. That's why now more than ever, as always, our purpose here is to become conscious and aware of what this human body is. This human body, once again, is the most advanced biotechnology, and we have the ability to shift and change our experiences by understanding that we can let go of being in a constant state of cause and effect, and empowering ourselves by being present and coming into a state of creation. You come into a state of creation by being in a state of unconditional love. And therefore, all of the manipulations and illusions of control that are occurring here, because there's being weaponized, emotions against us, reality is being weaponized against us, everything. On many multiple levels right now, we are being manipulated. So manipulation happens when we let go of our personal power. So we gotta return. We gotta own ourselves and our experience, and understand that there is no separation between your everyday life and the spiritual. There has to be an integration of that. Empathy. In order to have empathy, to have compassion, you have to understand what it means to love unconditionally. And I believe that's where a lot of us, we lack the understanding. Some of us have never felt love, true love, before in our lives. We've never had someone to give us a hug, So we got to help one another. This unity consciousness is necessary now, and we must group instead of coming into the separation. That's what they want, to have separate people feeling hopeless, helpless, lost. And that is an illusion. It's one of the greatest illusions that's always been played on our human race, many times. So that's great that you brought that up.
I asked all my So you come to the same conclusion that many of my guests, that even though I have topics, there's different topics, and we're coming to what do we do, and you're saying the same thing that most of my guests, but how do we operationalize that? To some people, that's too woo-woo and esoteric. To some people, they get it, whether they're a scientist or a physicist or a yoga teacher, right? There must be some common ground where we can operationalize and make this understandable to the people that are kind of nerdy eggheads, all the way down to the guru sitting on the mountaintop. And I don't have the answer. And then we're going to join the other show in about 5 minutes. So what is the first step to operationalize that first, maybe from the personal, and then bring it through to the global I'm reminded of that experiment that a bunch of yogis went into somewhere in Ohio in the 70s, and they did a group meditation and near Ohio, and the crime rate went down. And the police go, "What's going on? There's been no, our phones have been silent." So we can see how it works, but I'm putting it back as a major contactee. What have you learned from extraterrestrials about how to operationalize this?
Well, the first thing we got to do is really start working with our fear, because if you are in a constant state of fear of the unknown, anything that is unknown, whether it's extraterrestrial contact, whether it's this pandemic that's occurring, fear is the most easiest way to manipulate somebody. So if you can help yourself to move out of fear. And what is fear? Fear is the idea that you're separate from something unknown, that you're afraid. When something's unknown, we think it's going to harm us. We have to start working on those programs. And this applies across the board to anything that is unknown to us. And if we start thinking of how something can hurt us and instead, be in a state of neutrality and just observation and understand it as an experience. Everything is an experience. If you can stop applying meaning to that experience, like, oh, this is good and this is bad, you're going to stop going into that constant polarity, that constant separate mentality. And that's kind of where we have to pull away from, and where you can begin. That's the first step. The next step is that you come into a unity consciousness. Because if you're going to be constantly fearful for what the unknown, you're never going to be able to come into unity consciousness. Unity awareness is, again, the understanding that all things are a part of you. People that are suffering are a part of you. People that are causing the suffering are a part of you. They're a reflection of your own darkness, your own aspects of yourself. So all of that you've got to work on that. You've got to process that. So learn to surrender to the present moment. It doesn't mean that you're giving up your rights and becoming a slave of these systems that no longer work anymore. It means that once you stop being fearful, you can then take right action. Right action, you begin to educate yourself. Open your eyes. Look around you. Look at what's happening at the world. Don't be afraid of seeing reality. There is problems in our education system, in our food system, in the financial system, in our government, in our society, culturally. We are all being utilized to believe that we're constantly being separate. So whatever brings us back away from those constant separating ideas will help us empower and understand what our next step is. And, gently moving away from being dependent on a system that no longer serves, no longer serves in a positive way. So little by little, that's the first step is fear, and then unity consciousness. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I love it. I want to do a little plug here because we're going to call into the other show, and just to let you know, I'm not sure what they're doing. They're probably a different energy. So, and you also, if you want to, you don't have to go into the other show. We are going to do another 2-hour show with you down the line here. So you have options right now. And then I have a guest here I didn't pull up to see if they have a question. But I want to call into because I don't want them calling me because it'll kick us off the air. What is your website, and how can people reach you if they want to do sessions with you or just learn more about Geraldine Orozco?
You can get a DNA. Thank you. If you want to get a DNA reprogramming with me, you can visit my website at bayareameditation.com or geraldineorozco.com. If you're a hybrid parent or contactee that has experiences, you can visit me at hybridmother.com. And I'm very happy to be of support in any way that you guys need. Thank you so much.
Oh, wonderful. So I am going to call the other show. Do you want to stay with us, or do you want to? It's up to you. I have no attachment.
I'm happy to stay. That's fine.
Okay, here we go. Let me call them. And I have no idea what their energy is going to be like. It's like going into a room. We don't know what they're going to be talking about. Okay. Where's her number? Hold on. Oh, here it is. I got it. Hold on. I'm dialing people. Okay, here we go.
Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please hold and you will be able to listen to the show.
I can't even go for a walk in the wilderness without somebody appearing out of nowhere and starting to tell me their story. Watch for that sort of an experience for yourself, and let's see what happens. I think you're on the right path. I simply want you to pay attention to your dreams at night.
Okay.
And just be more self-aware. That's all that's needed, and your prayer will fall into place.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm trying to find out what number Jean is calling in on because she said she was going to be calling in
here
tonight. And folks, we want to help everyone and help everyone know other people. And I know this sounds funny, but I told Jean that we would come back and do the first hour with her tonight. And I don't know what number she's calling in on. The board's full. So, guys, I guess if you guys are normally, you're expecting us, so stand by. But I've got to find Janet, and you guys don't want to lose your place, I know. So let's see. Let me see. I don't remember this. Hi, 631, you're live and on the air. Looking for Janet.
Yes, hi. Thanks for taking my phone call.
Oh, you're
sure.
welcome.
I was just wondering, I'm looking for a new job, and I'm hoping real soon. I'm working now, but I need something different. Do you see something coming in?
Great. Tell me your first name and your date of birth.
October 5th, New York, Suzanne.
Okay. What year?
60.
Okay. So first of all, you need balance more deeply than many other things. Seems like when you feel balanced, your life functions higher, you get your needs met, you get opportunities to receive blessings. So I think the job opportunity shifts towards the end of October. You are working, but you're not doing the sort of work that makes you feel like you have a purpose and you're serving and helping people. You're good at what you do. You've got great people skills, you've got a beautiful voice, and you have a true desire to be of assistance to people. You often put yourself out there and put yourself at risk just for the hope of helping another individual. So I think your heart's in the right place, and this is going to fall into place very nicely.
Well, I'm hoping sooner because this is just a part-time job, and, it's a lot of back and forth and stuff. And I'm hoping the schools that I'm applying to, some are interviewing soon.
They are, but the actual start point, for some reason or another, there's a problem with different protocols that have to be followed, but you are in the right place. I don't think it's not in our time, it's in God's time at this point, if I can use that word. And I think that you are in an excellent position. I think your desire is so high it overrides everything. So you will be working in your chosen field very quickly. Let's just give it a little bit of time.
All right.
Okay.
And do you see anything else good happening?
Yeah, actually I do. Kind of see an interesting windfall of cash that happens to you out of sort of nowhere. That sort of assists you with a couple of different problems you have going on, makes it more comfortable for you to get some things done for yourself. So your money situation is good, your work situation is good.
When am I going to get this money?
Oh, yeah.
It's a windfall. I don't know. It looks like it's the end of September, the first few days of October, right around your birthday.
You mean a lottery? I'm going to have to play lottery?
No, I don't see anything like that. It's just a windfall. Totally unexpected.
Well, I don't want anybody to pass.
Your name is Suzanne, right?
Yeah.
That's my name too, so it's kind of interesting. So I think that you're trying to put logic to a very spiritual process, and there is no logic here. This is about trust and just going forward, really trusting your own intuition and your own insight and moving forward. This is a good chapter in your life.
Unmuted.
Yeah, I'm going on a blind date on Friday.
Okay, good. Good, very good. Enjoy
What do you
yourself.
see with that?
I don't see anything, so I'm of no assistance there.
Oh.
That doesn't actually mean.
Janet, are you out there?
Yes, I am. You
It
found us. You found us.
Good.
Yeah, I don't know if you want. I have my guest Geraldine Orozco with us, and we were kind of in a different space. I don't know if you want to continue what you're doing, and we'll bow out, or shift to.
We were waiting on you. I just couldn't find you. There were so many numbers. I just started clicking them all on.
We've been waiting for you. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, we're just doing that to fill time. So everybody wait till the last hour, because let's start now. Go ahead.
Can she help me too? Can I ask her the question too?
Sure.
Yes, I'm looking for a new job, and I'm hoping to get one like within a week or two. I'm working now, but I don't like my job.
Are you asking me?
I guess the person who
Theresa.
The person who just got in, who I didn't talk to before.
No, I don't.
Janet, what
have
number are you on?
I have no idea. I'm calling you from my show. But we do other things. So I'm sorry. I wish I could have my crystal ball and I could tell you what to do. From a practical point, when I was looking for work, I just sent my resumes out everywhere, and I would focus. I kind of set like my intention. I'll put a little altar. I'll pray and meditate. I'll put flowers and a candle and put some manifestations in a box and close it and then cross my fingers. And usually when I do this manifestation, most of what I want comes true. And if it's something I wasn't supposed to have, it doesn't happen anyway. So looking in hindsight, that's how I created a magical, mystical life. So set your intention, focus, do whatever I don't know if you pray or meditate, some kind of spiritual practice for your personal and highest good, and that pulls it into 3D manifestation. And then, the more clear you get on your vision, maybe not like the person that's going to come in is going to have, green eyes or something, but, some basic characteristics and qualities if you're trying to pull in a beloved. Every time I did that with a friend who's saying, I really need to have, this or that, we pulled it in. Intentions. Be careful of your intentions, and then it'll happen. But I don't operate the way Suzanne does. She's wonderful, by the way. Suzanne, you're marvelous. I just don't operate that way. And Geraldine does more. Geraldine does a different type of. Geraldine, say hi to everybody. This is Suzanne Wyman and Theresa J. Morris. We do UFO Secret Space on Fridays, but I guess Theresa started doing some readings. Do you want to tell our guest, Suzanne, what kind of sessions you do?
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much. So the sessions that I do are called DNA Reprogramming. And so what I do is I'm a hypnotherapist, and I work with my client seeing their multidimensional body to help them go to the root cause of what's causing the blockage. So, for example, abundance, money, if it's hard to get a relationship or work. And we open up that experience and we heal that root cause. We reprogram the programs that are causing the blockages. And therefore, the person then opens up. I mean, I've had people sell their homes within a week of doing the sessions and heal their bodies and all kinds of wonderful things that come as a result of this kind of work. So it's a very deep integrative healing.
Cool.
Great.
Really
but I just
cool.
want to add, I do with my husband and individually, I do hypnosis as well, but I come from a more traditional psychotherapy background, so we do the old catharsis and reprogramming and, take you back into your childhood issues or your past life issues and help you identify, like similar to what Geraldine does, your blocks, what's keeping you from your personal bliss, what's keeping you from manifesting. So I guess we all operate similarly and differently at the same time. Back
Great.
to you, Jay.
Well, Suzanne, thank you. Janet, with Geraldine tonight, now she is doing a lot of work in meditation, and so it fits with our Cosmos Conscious, and I know that you're going to be promoting Stargate to the Cosmos. And on Friday nights, folks, normally Suzanne and I do psychic readings on Thursday, but we had an hour to fill after Janet tonight, so we'll talk about Thursdays and Fridays together. But Janet and I in the future will be doing events, hopefully with Suzanne, that you've been hearing tonight, doing readings, and that was Janet. And Geraldine, what part of the country are you in? So all these ladies that are in our holding tank here, they'll wait till after. Folks, we'll get after the last hour, after we take a break. We got about 44 more minutes. But Geraldine, tell us about where you live and what is that Bay? Is it Bay meditation, or can you give us an idea so people can find you on your website? And are you in San Francisco area?
That's right. I'm in San Francisco, California, and I do work internationally, though, around the globe with clients. Bay Area Meditation is a corporate meditation company. We do corporate meditation for companies like Google and Facebook and all these companies here in Silicon Valley. But I also do host DNA reprogramming internationally, as well as other little healing sessions and hypnotherapy for contactees as well. So you can visit my website at bayareameditation.com, GeraldineOrozco.com, and if you're a contactee, ET experiencer, you can go to hybridmother.com. I specialize working with people that have hybrid children, parents of hybrid children. Yeah. So it's great to meet all of you. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you'll fit in really good with this side of the camp. Janet and I have been working together 8 years, putting together our, our Stargate to the Cosmos portal of all the many universes and dimensions. And we're always happy to meet new people. But did you know Janet in the past? Or in another past life?
That's sure.
Probably.
Yes, definitely. I was actually speaking at one of Janet's conferences. I think it's like 2 or 3 years now. Time flies so quickly, but it's been a long time since I've seen her. So happy to connect again. Mm-hmm.
Were you at the 2018 conference in Albuquerque, or was the last time I met you at one of Lorian's events? I forget where I meet people anymore.
Yeah,
Which
it was in Albuquerque. You and I met.
Wow.
Yes. We met.
Whoa.
Yeah, we met at
This is wonderful, Jill.
Yes, I know. It's great.
Oh, my gosh. I was supposed to meet you then. Suzanne, this is one of the original Stargate to the Cosmos readers. Or healers, I'm not sure, or practitioners. I don't know. Geraldine, what do we refer to you as since you were in the Stargate rather than a speaker?
I just call myself a practitioner, I guess you can say. Yes, that's most politically correct.
Thank you, practitioner.
Yes.
Wonderful.
You know, I had 65 presenters at that conference. I had 65 presenters, and I forget who's been there, and I don't have all that paperwork right now. So, but that was an amazing event, and I hope to do it again. I don't know if it's going to happen in 2021. We'll have to see how things clear up with the diseases that are going around. But yeah, okay, So Geraldine does this wonderful presentation about her contact experiences. And this is the first I've seen this website, Geraldine, the Hybrid Mother. That's beautiful. Are you a web designer? How do you get your websites going? That's really pretty.
Well, I did build all of my websites, but I'm not a web designer by any means. I just get by with what I have. Thank you so much. Yeah, I tried to make something simple and, put some information out for people that are looking to learn about Hybrid Mother, because when I first had my experience, I didn't even know the terminology, what to look for online for what I was experiencing, which was being introduced to hybrid children. So I thought if I put in hybrid mother, maybe it would be easy for those parents that are experiencing it to find the website. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Do you want to tell this audience, it's a different audience, a little bit about what happened about your hybrid children's story?
Yeah, absolutely. So in
Go ahead.
2013, I had a conscious experience, which means that I was wide awake in my bedroom, and my room filled up with a white light, and when I looked down at my phone, it was 3:33 in the morning, and I go to the window to look out the window, and I am paralyzed and removed out of my bedroom into craft, where I am met with six tall grays that introduced me to my hybrid children. And they introduced me to a series of information, not just that, but they were showing me alien language. They were showing me past life where I had been in the Pleiadian group of these beings. And most importantly, they introduced me to these 4 little children out of 8 that were a combination of humanoid with gray, with reptilian, very unique features. And it was a very impactful experience to meet them because I recognized myself in them, and they recognized me. And the interesting thing is when I was left in my room a couple hours later, I woke up with the ability to see the multidimensional body, feel and sense blockages, cords, attachments, tapping into their information. And that's how my life changed completely since 2013.
What were you doing before then?
Well, before then, I was an event planner. I had my own event planning company for 10 years, and here in the San Francisco Bay Area, I was managing and designing very high-end events. And but I had always been interested in meditation. Alongside my event planning company, I owned Bay Area Meditation, where I was hosting meditation circles in my corporate office here in Union City in Fremont. And, I've been very interested. I became certified in pranic healing, quantum energy healing very early on. I was interested in Qigong and a lot of healing modalities. But nothing took me to the depth of that knowledge and understanding until I had that experience in 2013. I mean, I never even uttered the word alien before that moment. So it really just ripped open the veil into an entire world that I was not even aware of before that moment. Yeah.
Wow. So, TJ, do you have any questions for Geraldine or Suzanne? Do you want her to cover anything in particular?
Yeah. So Geraldine, Suzanne Wyman here. What a great spot to be working in Northern California. I mean, the energy is completely different there than I think some other places in the world. Have you heard of the theory that there's a etheric net that sort of rests over San Francisco? And I found that whenever I go into the city of San Francisco, it's so much easier to move from heart chakra energy. So, and I love Fremont. Fremont is such a countrified zone within that. The East Bay is so beautiful, and there's spots of country out in the middle of, the city. There you are. You just travel a little outside of the city limits, and there you are. You're in the country. So what an interesting place for you to work from. I mean, it's just incredibly beautiful.
It is. I'm really blessed to be here. And I mean, I've traveled and lived in many other parts of the world, but always coming back here, because it's just there's a lot of everything. And it's a key spot energetically for a lot of forward movement. There's a lot of technological advancement, a lot of spiritual advancement here. Which is very nice, because it allows to introduce these kinds of healing modalities to the general public as well. As a matter of fact, here in Stanford, it was the first mindfulness research department that was created in the U.S. They actually study mindfulness. It was beautiful. A lot of very interesting technology that was linked to mindfulness and a lot of study of meditation and the electromagnetic field. A lot of really great organizations are out of here in San Francisco Bay Area. So it's a great community to be in, and they were very open to the concept of meditation early on in 2018, 2017, when we were just becoming introduced to meditation as a trendy thing. It was just coming into mainstream. So it's a great environment to be in, and there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of ancestral work here as well, as you were saying energetically. It's a great portal opening for forward movement that aligns in between Mount Shasta, all the way down to Sedona, all the way down to Mexico to the pyramids. We are on this line of fire here that it's a lot of fire energy, creative life force energy that's here. And even Hawaii plays a huge role in those energy points that's being created here. So, yeah, energetically it's a great place, indeed.
Oops.
Did she drop off?
No, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Oh, good. Okay, go ahead.
Geraldine, this is TJ. We're so accustomed, all three of us are radio hosts, and we're so accustomed to not having dead air that if we hear just even a millisecond, one of us will usually pick up. But the three of us are learning to work together again about today. Down here where I live in the Panhandle, right next door Lake Charles, we had a hurricane, and then we had a 3.8 earthquake, right? So we've got a lot of energy moving down here. So it's funny because we've never had that break between Janet, Suzanne, and TJ. We're usually talking over each other. None of us knew what to do. Well, Geraldine, you're a welcome breath of fresh air. Wow. Well,
pleased to be here.
How do you see us all working together in the future? Do you have insight? I'm a precog myself, but that's by intuitive health and wellness, and I do integrative medicine. And my daughter passed away down here in Tampa, Moffitt Cancer Center area, and I came back here to die. But Suzanne's been helping me, and Janet, because, if we live in the past, we live in depression. If we live in the future, it's anxiety. But do you deal with various groups dealing with AI now, because I'm very much about coming back in this life and helping others, and I know that that's my calling, but Janet and Suzanne are here to keep me aligned. And do you help people when they fall back into after death and dying? Because even though I've had death and dying, and I'm an old soul, and I keep coming back here, I was wondering if you could give anybody helpful information to work with the three of us, because Janet's always bringing in new people, but obviously you're a very old soul, and you must be in our star soul cluster. And people ask me all the time universally, what universe and what star soul cluster or what contract. But are you familiar with the terminology they use where you live before 2018 or after with AI? Do they all think that we're just out of our gourds if we talk about universal life forms? Or, give us a heads up, because I'd like to see how you could work with us in the future on terminology, etymology, if you don't mind.
I'd love to work with you guys. That would be great. But in terms of these origins, I guess, the old soul is definitely what it is. And coming into working with you guys on all this. Now, do you work directly with artificial intelligence, or what is it that you're working on with AI?
I work direct on many universal levels, but part of my reason for coming back in this reality was to reinitiate the ancient mystery schools and also bring back what we call past life memories, but working what you would call other as far as AI is concerned. One of my scariest missions off planet in this universe was when we joined at universal level a quadrant that involved the Andromeda Galaxy with the Milky Way Galaxy, and one of our charges was to bring into this reality on this timeline that we were going to actually introduce some of our personnel that were mixed biological, and my husband and I were having trouble with that. So we had to have an education in space because we didn't want to deal with the big G God word. It was really hard for us because in this reality we had already accepted our programming, even though we were old school or old souls. So even when he passed, that was sort of my question with AI, because once we believe the intuitive programming in our DNA, we're only working with less than 1.6%, and 95, they say some more or less, is water. So it's really just etheric vibrations and energy washing through whatever vehicle. And so my hardest part was coming back and being here and working with other people in this reality, especially today, 9/4/2020. So AI is allowing us to, I guess you could say, like the movies, Lucy it, because we were all taking our time finding each other. Did you see the movie Lucy? I know Janet did, where she became all and everything.
Oh, yes. You
did?
Yes, I did. Very interesting film, yes. But
so that has a lot to do with what I see you doing, is helping all of them. But we've got to come up with the etymology with Janet, Suzanne, myself, and you, with a language that we can all... so I just use Lucy as an AI to answer your question. So you see how we use visions? Because I didn't know how to tell you. So Lucy, how do you see that?
So let Geraldine explain what she does with the DNA reprogramming. Go ahead, Geraldine.
So
what
the main purpose.
Respond.
Yes, the main purpose with what I do, in let's put it in layman terms, if we can, is to help the soul detach from that basic programming that you were talking about a minute ago. That's exactly what we do. The idea is that we are deprogramming from the matrix programming in order to help the soul choose how they travel and work on other planes of consciousness, right? So, again, we come into the incarnation of the physical body, we go through the amnesia process, and, well, as a child, we're very much aware and awake, but the programming kind of goes in early on, up until the age of 7. And so the age of 7, we're already heavily programmed with a lot of basic ideas of our perception, and we are tying ourselves to the construct of this reality. So what I do is I work with people to deconstruct all of those false programmings in order to help them come into their real, true core essence, right? We're coming back to that divine, I guess you can say like a blueprint of the soul. You're coming back to that origin point, that neutral point. And so when you enter that point, then this is when the body becomes fully aware and has the ability to choose their experience. You come into that God creator self. So all of the programming that I do, I talk about things that I have done on myself. Like I wouldn't speak of anything that I haven't done personally. So I know that you can reach that 0 point with this kind of work. And once you reach that, you know, it's a definition of a whole new kind of human, a new perception of reality that sometimes is very difficult to integrate into everyday life, because we're oftentimes addicted to even suffering. We become addicted to suffering. We become addicted to experiencing things, even enjoying things, right? So this journey, which is ultimately you're coming into the embodiment of unconditional love, allows you the ability to be in a state of constant observation. And the state of observation doesn't only happen in waking state, like, you know, when you're getting up and going to work and having your families and you have these regular matrix life. It also applies to becoming conscious and aware in dream time, where you are leaving the body on an astral level to begin to work on other planes, which we do every night unconsciously, right? But your ability to come into conscious awareness in waking time will leak into the dream time and ultimately in death. So when the soul is being detached from the physical body, it also becomes aware. And I was able to experience that with a near-death experience that I had 2 years ago, where my soul was detaching from the body. And I exactly became aware in that moment where I could break my contractual agreements. And through the breaking of those contractual agreements of that death experience, I chose to return back into my body and continue my work here. Now, there's a lot to this. I mean, there's also deception within death that occurs, and all of these experiences are manifested based on your vibrational frequency. Your vibrational frequency is a product of everything that you believe in and everything that you experience and are willing to be aware of. So, there's a lot to unpack and a lot to understand there. If you do the work, if you can heal and deprogram that heavy program, you can detach and begin to work on higher planes. And this is where the soul can come into evolution. It becomes conscious, aware on higher planes.
So when did this sounds exactly like what we were doing 30 or 40 years ago back with the motivational movement, but we were working with the ancient mystery schools, and we were working with people that we were putting out there, Stephen Hawking, Gene Roddenberry, people like that, all meeting at various times together to change the reality. Do you have anybody? Last week we had a girl, a very smart woman, Lisa O'Hara, and I hope Janet brings her back. I didn't contact her yet, but she was very much on using Swerdlow's books. Now Suzanne is our master dream interpreter, and she's studied with some very brilliant people in that. But all of us, at least me, Suzanne, and Janet, are all old souls and dealt with all this prior to coming here. And so one of my jobs was to work with the AI and using all the language, not just the musicians with and the 12 sounds, but with the people making the AI today that we're using, like we use in space, if that makes any sense. So you're doing the kind of work, but what Suzanne, help me out here, because you and I talk a lot, and Janet does too, but we've had lucid dreaming, but it goes beyond your conscious, subconscious, and superconscious. And I don't know, Janet, I don't know if you're familiar with who Suzanne studied with, but about the language.
Question. Yeah, put it.
Okay, Suzanne.
Question. Well, I'll answer it. What's the question you're trying to ask?
Okay, I'm looking for the connection. Suzanne, what is the difference between what she's saying on, you know how we study music and the 12, and then we've got the 10 dimensions and quantum, all our Joseph Campbell theory of everything. But you get it, because Janet and Suzanne are interpreters. And people like me, I'm so old that I've forgotten how to be Thoth. Thrice reborn. Go ahead. Go ahead, Suzanne.
Can I ask you a couple of questions? Just a couple of quick questions, Geraldine.
Which you? Okay, Geraldine, go ahead.
Yeah. Can I just ask you a couple of quick questions?
Yes,
please do. You're so soft there on the mic.
Okay.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time in Santa Monica, and there's a dimensional rip in there, and so I learned multi-dimensional type of readings, and I do multi-dimensional dream interpretation. So there's times when I listen to people, and I hear their dream sequence, and I think some of the stuff that they're talking about is really just an opening between who they are in another dimension, and for whatever reason, like you talk about the dream state leaking through, when they become conscious of that and they use some tools to interpret that state, then they get the clarity. And so a lot of the material that you're talking about is material that we, sort of worked in the 70s and 80s, because I think you're, no offense, I think you're quite a bit younger. We looked at your picture on LinkedIn, and you're so beautiful and everything else, and we said, oh my God, look at how beautiful she is. So I'm thinking you're a little bit younger than we are, so I don't want to put you on the spot and ask you your age. I studied with a man by the name of Alex Lukeman, and Alex Lukeman was a descendant of Brew Joy, and Brew Joy wrote the book Joy's Way, and Alex Lukeman wrote the book What Your Dreams Can Teach You, and so I studied with him for a year on dream interpretation. So I really believe that there's an incredibly grounding, practical process to spiritual development through understanding how to do dream interpretation. I think there's a real need for it today.
Mhm.
So what's your question?
Yeah, wonderful.
What's your question?
The language. What would the language crossover between music, DNA, nomenclature? Because so many of these younger kids are picking up using DNA and the chakra balancing systems out of the old Tarot and Tantra. But it's Middle East meets West. But they're using it with the AI over in Silicon Valley, and that's basically where she is.
What's your
the
question?
Language and the terminologies are all crossing over.
Put it in a question. Put it in a question. What's your question?
The language that we can use, like when we're doing these, helping all these people and their support into understanding that they are now in cyberspace, they're hyperspace interfacers. So we're here to help with the crossover, or what we call the Ascension age, right? Ascending into higher levels of essence, so to speak, that everybody doesn't have just the 3D illusion. We're supposed to be awake already, but a lot of these scientists have kept us, dumbed down in the government.
What's the question? What's the question?
How do we make this happen with Geraldine?
Yes. Okay, so what is
the language
you want to happen?
Geraldine, what's the common language between us? Because it's a lovely. I understand what you're talking about. I'm listening to your story, and a lot of the information that you're discussing are things that we've. The Indians talk about, the chakra balancing system. It's ancient. The Hindus went back to that.
Well,
a lot of these things are.
There's nothing new.
Right.
Right.
So
I'm just posing a gentle question to Geraldine, I'm asking her if she has a common language. And I'm just going to talk to Geraldine for 1 second. That's the question. There we go. I'm on mute.
Yeah, thank you for your question. It's a very interesting question. Here's the thing. One of the things that I came across in my hypnosis, so all of this information I'm talking to you about, you talk about my age. I'm 36 years old, but all this information has come through hypnosis. Okay, after I went through my own very profound deprogramming to the point where I came into that 0 point. And so when I did, coming into that awareness, I realized that I had access to infinite amounts of information, not just of this current timeline and our life here in the history as we know it, but access to the Akashic records, what we call the Akashic records, right? All of these things, we became very aware of that information. One of the things that was shown to me is that there is a new language in the universe, a universal language that is surfacing now. And the language has to do with sound, with vibration, with frequency, with color, and with shape. And it's something, and I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're talking about, but I know that you guys work with color and sound. And what I do in my DNA reprogramming, I am using vibrational frequency to re-edit DNA, how it's being written. I vocalize the vibrational frequency. I also use color, and of course color is vibrational frequency as well, in order to help shift the human body that is emitting their own auric field. Every human has one particular vibrational frequency that is, let's see, how do we put this? It's basically defining and has all the information of everything that they are, right? Everything that is encoded in their DNA, in their divine blueprint, in their chakra system, everything that they are is emanating a certain color, a certain vibrational frequency. So in order to create healing, oftentimes that overall frequency has to be tweaked in order to open up, right, to clear out any stagnation and whatnot. So what I do in the DNA reprogramming is I identify that vibrational frequency that the human needs to open themselves up into the next level of their understanding, their healing, a new perspective. And we apply that, and it affects the entire organism, not just the physical, but the non-physical aspect. This is a part of this information that came through. It's also an understanding of sacred geometry. It's also how we are seeing crop circles, for example, which are communication. If we understand this kind of language, we have the ability to translate a lot of different healing modalities. We have a link to ancient cultures like the Mayans, like the ancient Egyptians. All of these ancient cultures were operating on this kind of universal language then. I think we're coming into a new aspect of that now. And technology does play a certain role in it, but for me, the kind of technology that I focus on is organic technology that comes in from our awareness of the non-physical. So our ability to come into our intuitive self allows us the connection to infinite knowledge. And in that infinite knowledge, we can understand, we can channel in advanced technology, advanced all kinds of things. Like these are the hybrids that are being born now, are directly tapped into that knowledge and that information. And I think that this is kind of progressively as a human race, we're activating these parts of our DNA which allow us the ability to access that kind of infinite information that's available to us. So I hope that this answers the question, or at least addresses part of it. Is this kind of what you're talking about?
Well, it sounds like the same thing, we're all talking about. Like Janet said, there's nothing new under the sun. I was just wondering if there was something out there in AI land that was using something besides what everybody else is using on the Internet, which still sounds like the same thing, sounds, symbols, frequencies. And, I've been working with integrative medicine with this cancer group, or various groups, and we all seem to come up with the same thing. It all comes back to biology. So we're back to AI again and biological entities off planet. So I'm still having a direct conflict, but that's what I started with. So that's my deal, Geraldine, was coming in, learning how to communicate.
So we're biological. We're biological entities. Now, are we? And we had this conversation earlier. Is this nothing more than with Battlestar Galactica, that we think we're alive, we think we're not artificial, or are we artificial? Are we cyborgs, or are we humans? And what does that mean to be human? Is it just some kind of advanced technology that we come into these avatars that we inhabit, and we're souls animating these forms? And what does all this mean? Because, the Anunnaki did not experience disease, so they somehow, their form did not experience aging nor diseases. And then when they came to the Earth, suddenly they're experiencing aging. But they still are alive. They conquered that, and here we are we've been dummied down. Our DNA's been shut off. We only believe that we live, between 50 and 120 years. Very few make it to 120. So part of what's happening is our belief system. But how do we go past that to be our potential, which is the Anunnaki, and they live to be millions of years in physical form. And that's our potential because we have a lot of their DNA. But so I think what you're saying, TJ, is you're frustrated, as are we all, on, how do we wake this up within ourselves? Or are we back into the recycle system? We get recycled.
No, not me. I've already done the Anunnaki stuff. You have too. So can you hear me, or am I out?
So
can you hear me?
So you're not coming back.
Oh, you can.
So you're saying
no. I'm back like a bodhisattva. No, this was a conscious choice. I've already died 3 times and how many lives already? No, this is a choice because I told you I was working out of this universe. So I'm part of the group that's way up there working with the old school before, I helped create all the indigos and the Law of One and all of that so many people are using before we did the Tony Stubbs book, So we were working years and years in this reality, but we couldn't get them to understand the biological suits, ergo World War II, Hitler, lotta, So those people you call the Anunnaki, they're the ones with the God levels in the 369, with Ennead 9, and they're also the ones that said that we were only going to let the people on this particular location live 100 to 25 years. And that is set as a key in the in the Andromeda, as well as this Milky Way galaxy. Those were gods. Those were above, and that's the law of 5 to 7. And we go all the way up to 9. And they were only teaching. Well, I was only teaching with the with my God group was the universal laws of down the 7 universal steps. So that's where we decided we would give the 12. But at the level,
TJ,
that's how we got up to the 12.
TJ, we're going to have to unpack that because it's too many words, and we have
we've only got 8 minutes on your show.
I know. So, but let's not. We've got a long time. We have other shows. We need to unpack that. So let's keep it kind of on a. I
Cosmos conscious level.
Half of what you're saying, but we've got to start with the human level, and then go to the ET level, and then go to the God level. So we're going past too many steps. So we get a lot of people that are still learning. So that's why I always say slow down, unpack. I know you're a genius, Geraldine. You're brilliant. Everybody's brilliant, but we got to slow down and unpack it because we're here to educate people, not to lecture and not just download. We're here to help people and educate and help them catch up, help them understand how to evolve and grow, become more conscious. And none of us is better than anyone else. It's just because you're an old soul.
Well, the key is
doesn't
love.
mean the people in kindergarten.
The key is love.
The new souls coming into kindergarten are just as important. We're all equal in the divine plan, and the key is love. Yes, most definitely.
But
so
the key is love, and we leave out the levels. Well, that's the key. You've mentioned 125 or 120, but that's the key that was left here, and there's nothing I can do about that because you asked me, what I was doing, but there's nothing I can do about what's already been set up. There's just some universal laws I can't change. Not right now, not with this level. So I think that the whole Ascension age is about everything we've been doing from the beginning of time is trying to teach people how to be back into the biological so they can get back out, but appreciate the essence of smell and sound and hearing and taste and touch because you miss that. I miss that. And even when I come back in, I miss that. But then when I'm out there, I miss this. So how do we teach that? With love. There's got to be. Suzanne, jump in here. Don't you believe that no matter what we use?
That's basically when you're in the moment, in the now, then you appreciate the air on your face and the smells and the love for your kids and their spouse and your kitties. But when you go grandiose and it's like, I'm all over the place, you don't have the now. Okay, but go ahead, Suzanne. We got
the now.
4 minutes. Go ahead.
Geraldine, it's It's an interesting conversation. It's really interesting. You were in the event planning industry, and now you're in the metaphysical world. So, interesting story. Your transition has an interesting element to it, the awakening. So I just find it an interesting story. It's also, and I'm not trying to point this out. It's also an interesting chapter because you're in the early chapter of your work. It's very interesting.
Yes, thank you.
That's a good point. Yeah, where do you think this will go? Because that's the language I'm looking for that I don't know how to communicate to you. Is I'm trying to get to that. What are they doing where you live with AI? Because we all know that they know the nomenclature from all you have to do is Google it. So what are they doing with people like you? What's the next level?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean next level, like, but I can tell you what I know. I mean, working here in the Silicon Valley, I mean, there's a lot of different agendas and programs, as you know, that are in connection with the government, and a lot of different programs that are meant to slow down the progression of our evolution, in a sense. And also, there's a lot of programs and agendas that are moving towards transhumanism. So, I mean, I think we're seeing that very clearly in our society today. But again, ultimately, as Janet was saying earlier, and I agree, the thing is to help people understand what to do, like how to embody the empowerment of moving forward. And I think that's the value that we can bring, is by educating the ability to come into that sovereignty, to that connection to oneself, that divine connection to source. And therefore realize what is deception, what is distraction, and what is the focus. I believe that there's so much distraction, in so many different things, even in the spiritual community, that we lose sight of, what we need to be focusing on. And the focus is really coming into that awareness of oneself, so that we can begin to deprogram from the matrix and find who we truly are, which is nothing like what we've been shown, like what we've been taught. And once you realize that, once you come to that realization, all of these things that you're watching on TV, like artificial intelligence, all of these things that are happening around us, all these programs that are being carried out, you can begin to choose whether you want to participate in those things or not participate. Now, there's many different levels of artificial intelligence. I'm not sure which one you're specifically talking about, but there's artificial intelligence in the fact that there's an agenda for transhumanism that's occurring on planet Earth on a mass scale, right, through programming of television and art and media and the computers and all this technology that's happening around us. But there's also an artificial intelligence that's in the non-physical body, which is also a big problem, which is the hijacking of our consciousness when we're not aware, which is the implementation of entities and attachments that are floating around in our space and becoming a vibrational match to us when we're not consciously aware of our bodies. And I also work with a lot of people that end up with a lot of this artificial intelligence attached to them that is maintaining them in a low vibrational frequency, such as depression, fear, anxiety. All these emotions, which we know as emotions, are an end product of a lot of this artificial intelligence that's being operational on the non-physical. And it's important for us to understand how that works, the mechanism behind that. When we enter a low-frequency emotion, we become a vibrational match to a lot of this artificial intelligence. And this is something that's being carried out on a massive scale, even in our communities. Large gatherings, places like malls, places like ballparks, all of these conference places, music halls, all of these places of large gathering where there's a lot of people. There's technology that is absorbing and utilizing unconscious aspects of humans and manipulating that aspects of themselves. So, that's also another part of artificial intelligence. Now, there's the other part of implantation, which happens. Implants that are as small as little tiny moles that can appear on your body through astral, traveling and other unconscious aspects of yourself that go into the astral planes can be very easily hijacked and manipulated and controlled. So this is why I advocate becoming aware of yourself and educating yourself on becoming conscious in waking time and dream time, so that when you are detaching from the physical body during sleep, during dream time, you're not a host, an unconscious, unaware host of yourself in those planes. And
Geraldine, we're running out of time. I just wanted to have you wrap it up. We will have you on again. Tell everybody your website one more time,
Geraldine,
and then we're going to be kicked off. Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely. So anyway, if you guys are experiencing any of those kinds of, blockages and artificial intelligence in your space, do get in touch with me. My website is GeraldineOrozco.com, Bay Area Meditation, and also hybridmother.com. And I'm very happy to work with you. So thank you. Thank you,
Geraldine.
It's a pleasure.
I like your voice and I like your work.
Aloha.
It'll be fun getting to know you.
Aloha.
Okay.